follow you over there. Okay, we supposedly are live.
Follow me over there. I
Well,
wasn't I
I'm
wasn't going
playing.
nowhere. I'm
I'm
right here.
playing.
I haven't moved.
It's wherever you lean around. I gotta reposition the deal. You need to put some little tape marks on your floor so you know where to put your chair every time.
Well, I got like 5 or 6 wheels under this that gum seat. How am I going to do that?
I don't know. Well, we're back again. So far nobody. We have 0 viewers. So let me double check and make sure we're live. Of course, we kind of did this at the last minute.
Oh, I see one popped in.
Hey,
Somebody's there.
somebody is out there. So that's a good sign. Let me switch over here. Hey, Craig Bell. He must have been bored and decided to chime in.
Well, look, it was a beautiful day today. I mean, I'm looking outside my window here and it's still beautiful out there. I mean,
It
the sun's
is.
shining, clear skies. I was
Yeah.
out baiting crawfish traps, and I got to tell you, it was just an amazing day out there today.
Yeah, it was. And Greg Bell, we would like for you to know that we're not really calling you a zero because now you're a +1. All right, we got a few other people. We got about 10 people joining us. All right. Um, you want to just go straight into the countdown, let some more people join, skip the countdown, and just start yakking, or what shall we do tonight?
Let's just start yapping.
I agree.
So here's what I want to know. There's what 20 people watching. I'm curious. Y'all let us know. What is something that has been on your mind? What's bothered you the last few days? I mean, Rex and I can tell you, I know what Rex is.
Yeah.
Insurance. Rex was just bending my ear about automobile insurance here in Louisiana. I mean, I don't know, and I can tell you, insurance gives me a dadgum heartburn. But what about y'all? What has been on your mind today? I think John Glover had a bad day at the Caddo Commission meeting. She may even still be there.
Interesting. Hey, that'd be cool if she's watching Louisiana Watch while at the Cattle Commission meeting. That's awesome. Yeah, well, and I don't know. Let me switch screens here for a second. We'll get to the illegal immigration. So let me get on my rant for just a minute about insurance, and I want to get everybody else's opinion. So, long story made short, I acquired a 2003 Ford F-150 plain Jane truck. It's got air conditioning, blah, 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 198,000 miles. Long story made short, the truck belonged to my mom and dad. My dad passed away about a year and a half ago, so we did a transfer title and all that stuff. Anyway, so I called State Farm today. My parents have insurance through the exact same agent. I call State Farm today. I'm like, hey, we need to get the white F 150 off of mom and dad's policy or mom's policy and transfer it over to my policy. Oh, well, hold on a minute. Let me get you a quote. Now, I have 3 other vehicles with State Farm. I've had State Farm since I was 15 years old and my parents first put me on their policy till I could have my own. And in that amount of time, I have had, 30 plus years, however long, I have had 2 or 3 claims, maybe. No accidents. I can count on one hand the number of speeding tickets I've ever had. So she comes back. I figured, it's gonna minimum liability is just a secondary vehicle. We're not really gonna drive it very much, but just in case we need it or something like that. So I figure, I got an '03 Toyota. It's about 65, $70 a month. I figured it'd be somewhere around there. Oh, no, 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 Mr. Lowry. Double. Double.
Holy shamoly.
I was livid. I apologized to the lady because I know her. And I was like, look, this rant I'm about to go on is not directed at you personally.
You gave her heads up.
I pretty much got on my, Bossier Watch, Louisiana Watch soapbox. And you know what the heck of it is? I have to prove my driving record for 2 or 3 years to qualify for that additional discount. I was like, wait a minute. You're telling me my nearly stellar driving record as far as State Farm is concerned, it doesn't follow me to whatever vehicle? She's like, no, that's not the way it works. I was like, so
Oh,
Anyway, I have fallen victim to the Louisiana insurance scam.
I'm thinking that a lot of people have their insurance story. I'm wondering, that would be it, that would be interesting if there was like a web page or something where everybody went and they could like put their individual insurance story out
Yeah.
there.
Maybe
You know,
we should start a Facebook group. The let's see, what would we call it? Louisiana Insurance Anonymous. Yeah, play on AA. Louisiana Insurance Anonymous.
I mean, because look, the insurance people they all say, "Hey, it's all you evil trial lawyers. It's all your fault." And the
She's
trial lawyers, they
she
all say
pointed.
it's all the insurance people's fault.
Well, we were in this conversation, and so she was, I guess, not speaking on behalf of State Farm, and I'm not going to call her out, but she did mention the trial lawyers. I said, but wait a minute. I said, we have also elected a buttload of officials that are literally lawyers for the insurance industry. We have both foxes in the hen house. And she was like, well, I can't really argue with that. I said, I can drive right now, I can drive 30 miles west and I can cut my insurance in half. Same policy, same coverage. She's like, I know. So, anyway, there's my rant for insurance for the day. And I know that's small potatoes compared to somebody like you that's got, 18 wheelers and all that, and probably other folks too. But, boy. And
I,
look, Ryan Haygood says State Farm is your problem, deep state insurance. I'm probably going to shop around, but I've had State Farm so long, and the very few claims I've had, I just call State Farm, and it's not a hassle at all. You know, they've always taken care of it, but it just really irked me that I'm basically paying twice as much as I should be because they treat it as a new policy.
I mean I guess we are all creatures of the status quo and not changing. But I can tell you, I've had State Farm since
Mm-hmm.
1988.
Right,
1988.
right,
Never changed. Never even never even tried to get another bid from anybody on my
right,
personal stuff.
right.
Now business insurance, I can tell you, you boy, I got some stories on some business insurance.
Yeah. We
And,
need to do an insurance. Well, we had what was his name? Ford. Was it John Ford, the deputy insurance commissioner, a couple of shows
oh
ago?
yeah, 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 yeah.
But
But
honestly,
people.
we didn't get very far in the weeds on that, really.
No, we didn't get in the weeds, and even there were some people that criticized our show. Said, "Man, this is all feel good stuff, but you didn't get down into the nitty gritty details,
Yeah,
didn't?"
well,
And
well.
we didn't push him hard, and we didn't. I don't think that we did. I mean,
Hmm. What if we get, over on Bossier Watch Tuesday night, we were talking about having Adam Seabass, I mean, Adam Bass, and maybe get Seabiscuit or, well, Seaball on, and former Senator Ryan Gaddy. Let them have a free for all.
well, now that's the interesting thing. We reported on Bossier Watch for everybody. We reported that Ryan Gaddy said, "Hey, you put a debate together, I'll be there. I
Yeah.
will be front and center, and I'll debate whoever." Because you and I both were there
Mm-hmm.
when we had this insurance debate at the Bossier Parish Republican Executive Committee. I don't know what year it was. What was that, like 2019, something
Yeah,
like that?
sometime around then.
And, Alan Seaball, a state representative at that time, and Ryan Gaddy was state senator at that time. They kind of went at it, pointing out, whose fault it actually was. One side was saying one thing, one side was saying the other thing. And I don't know. I got to say, to date, what apparently what Alan Seaball said hadn't actually panned out. And I don't know.
Hmm.
Um,
It would be interesting, and I would encourage folks to go to the Bossier Parish Republican Party's Facebook page, and you'll have to scroll back a couple of years, but those videos are still up there. Maybe I'll link them in the Louisiana Watch comments or whatever, because it's actually kind of interesting to listen to both sides of it, because really, as far as I can tell, nothing's changed, and we just sent a couple more foxes to the hen house. Anyway, so there's my rant about insurance for now. That's going to
Well,
be a ongoing subject.
I don't know about the likelihood of a debate between, all the different factions, the lawyer lobby and the insurance guys. I don't know that they'll debate. I don't think any of them will really come out here publicly, at least on a show like this where all of the public can see. The PEC, that's kind of a tucked away thing. I got to say I give credit to Ryan Gaddy that he doesn't care. He's willing to. I mean, I've got to give him credit. I disagree with Ryan on a lot of things,
Right?
but he's he's willing to put the chips out here on video, live, no takebacks, in front of everybody.
Yeah.
That gets you credit. I'm
Could could
sorry.
could make for an interesting show. And yeah, he may be debating crickets because I mean, what good would it do for an insurance guy who is a state rep to come on, or senator, and well, I guess another senator now who is literally a lawyer for the insurance companies. I mean, it wouldn't do them any good to come on. They're catching money from both sides. So, all right, what else shall we could beat that dead horse to death again and again and again.
Well, I got to tell you, I've been wondering. It's eating at me a lot about this Caddo Parish sheriff's race. It's just in
Well,
the back of my head. It's
yeah.
just like, and I don't know, maybe I'm oblivious or whatever, but I'm just wondering, when are we going to start running all the white people out of Caddo?
Oh, we're gonna bring out the hoods right off the get go.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, look,
Shall I make us little pointy hats now for this show?
I'm just
I
saying, look, the race was made, the sheriff's race in Caddo was made about race. It was
It
made
was.
about race. And there was a lot of things, said regarding race. And, you know, there were some people who were on the side of Whitehorn, in which Mr. Whitehorn has a long law enforcement career. And I think it was sad that the whole race took this turn to racism. I mean, I hate it, but the sad reality is it was. And there were some comments talking about how that once he became the sheriff, that the white people or whatever were going to have to move, or going to have to come to Bossier.
Well,
And I'm just wondering, when does that start? Because I never heard Mr. Whitehorn condemn any of that. Never heard
well,
any of it.
I also haven't seen any vehicles headed eastbound over the river with mattresses and box springs on top of them either. So there's that. Every time this happens, all the South Shreveport is going to secede from Shreveport and form its own community, and there's going to be a bunch of white flight over to Bossier, blah 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 blah. It's kind of like, look, I'll put it this way. To me, it's kind of like the liberals. If Trump gets elected, they're all moving to France or they're moving to Canada, blah 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 blah. They never do.
We
If
we
Obama gets elected, we're going to have to move out of the country because it'll be the worst thing in the world and Armageddon. And, I don't know. It's a lot of
look.
hyperbole.
Well, here, I mean, look, here's the thing that just gets at me a lot about this. So, in Shreveport, Louisiana, we're talking about white and black, right? And
In Shreveport proper. Yeah.
I didn't never hear it being made, white people being against black people. I heard it was more the black against the white. And let's just say it the way it is. I mean, that's the way it is. The black folks were making a big deal about black folks need to get out, right? Black
Well,
folks need to.
they need to get out and vote, and that's true.
And I don't have a problem with that. They should get out and vote.
All right.
But it was being made as a racial thing between blacks and whites. And I'm just wondering, what is that debate going to look like when it becomes the brown? I mean, what is the black folks going to do when the white people are no longer the boogeyman? That the brown people are they're already being replaced. And look, you the black folks in Caddo are primarily Democrat, right? And they were pushing that as well too. The Democrats, it's the evil white Republicans, the evil white Republicans. Well, it to my knowledge, it's not the white Republicans that are trying to get the Browns in. I don't understand how the black Democrats not see they don't see that they're being replaced. I don't get it. And at what
Well,
point
because in
what point
Shreveport,
does that turn?
now I have not, in full, fairness, I have not watched the demographic trends of Shreveport and Caddo Parish in many years. Really, since Cedric Glover was in office, and I had a few tit for tats with Cedric. Um, but I will say this: the percentage of folks who identify as African American, Black, whatever the politically correct term is on the check the box these days, is north of 50%. Whites are south of 50%, obviously. And then I don't know what the Latino, Hispanic, and other numbers are at this point. But in Shreveport itself, which is not all of Caddo Parish, certainly, but in Shreveport itself, it's going to be a while before the Latino or Hispanics are going to be able to catch up in demographics to the African American or blacks. Now, maybe they're going to do it. I don't know. But you're right, it is definitely a changing demographic. And I did see, granted, I'm sitting here as a white guy, but I did see a definite racial tone to one side of the campaign that wasn't really on the other side. And look, I'm not a huge fan of Nicholson. Make no bones about it, because we interviewed him here and I thought he was pretty weak on the Second Amendment. And if I were in Caddo Parish and had to vote, I'd have to hold my nose, proverbially, to pull the lever for Nicholson. But he was trying to make it more about experience or lack thereof on Whitehorn's part, and not a racial thing as far as I could see. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Y'all can put some Facebook posts or comments and in the comments and prove me wrong. But we did see that on the, at least supporters of Whitehorn, on that side, making it a racial issue. I agree with you with that.
Well, yeah. I mean, unquestionably, it was made a black-white Republican Democrat issue in Caddo Parish in the sheriff's race. That was what it was made about. So what I don't understand is from the perspective of black folks, especially Democrat black folks, and if you'll go to the cut, I just seen this. I just seen or share my screen.
Okay.
I just seen this statistic here recently, and it shows the statistics of illegal immigration into the U.S., which is primarily, Hispanics that have been being. I mean, I would argue being brought into the country to replace not just blacks but whites and blacks.
Oh, yeah.
And the big picture here is that this is what I don't understand. It's Democrats. You see, from when Trump left office to
Mm-hmm.
currently, look at the trend lines. do
Yeah.
you do you think that's Republicans that are doing that? And they're not just replacing whites; they're replacing whites and blacks. But
Yeah.
yet, in Caddo Parish, black Democrats, white people are the bad guys. White
Well,
Republicans are the bad folks. I don't
because
get it.
they're not seeing the bigger picture yet, obviously, and I would argue they need to, because you're right. I I I don't know what the national numbers are as far as blacks voting Democrat versus Republican or Libertarian or Independent, and also the Hispanic vote, but we can certainly with ease say it is the vast majority of blacks, the vast majority of Hispanics are voting Democratic.
Yeah. So for the black community to be, whites are the bad folks, and the this is Democrat policies right here on this chart. The
Yeah.
numbers don't lie. And you're supporting replacing yourself? You're supporting
Well,
Hispanics coming in and displacing you and replace
the
Rex,
argu-
they're giving these people handouts left and right, and they're not even freaking citizens of this country.
but the argument can be made, strangely enough, that the white politicians that are helping put all these policies in place and, you know, instituting this turnover of the races and demographics, well, guess what? A lot of them are white politicians and elected officials. And guess what? The brown and the black folks, and specifically the Hispanics, aren't stupid. They're going to vote all the white folks out.
Okay, now Louis Bazaar makes a great point. He says, I married a Mexican lady over an American, and she is Republican. Absolutely agree with that. And so, illegal is probably the adjective we should put in here and key that, because it's the illegal, and it's mostly Hispanic of origin that are coming in here night and day. And I mean, I don't understand how you can come into this country illegal, and it's a Democrat president. And I'm not going to give Mike Johnson and the Republican Congress delegate, but we're going to get into that here in just a minute. They say there's nothing we can do. You got a president that won't enforce the law and is, making sure that all of this population change is happening. But yet you've got black Democrats in Caddo that are railing against white Republicans, and you're basically enabling the replacement of you. You're on that team. I,
It's a
I
topsy turvy world we live
I
in.
don't understand. I don't get it.
There's got to be some bigger picture, Duke, and we're just not smart enough to figure it out. Because this has been going on for decades. This is not anything new. Now, as you can definitely
The
see by the
levels are new.
right, as you can see by the levels, that is a big spike, but this is nothing new. I mean, immigration was at the forefront when Reagan was in office. Granted, the levels were much lower, but this is nothing new. So, I don't know. I have no idea. Let us know in the comments, how do we solve the illegal immigration problem? And I want to say this, that I have no problem with legal immigrants who come in and do it the right way and go through the process. And I know that, there's not always been an immigration process in the history of this country like there is now. Um, but then again, things have changed and dynamics have changed. And I have zero issues with people who come over, go through the process. It is a long, arduous process. I have no problem with as many immigrants as want to come in legally because we've got plenty of real estate in this country. But that illegal immigration deal and them the Democrats trying to turn it over to where they'll be able to vote and trying to get policies in place like that. And I guess us Republicans are not smart enough to figure out how to do that either.
Yeah, well, it needs to be one day, one vote. We need to do away with mail ballots, and we need to do away with these stinking machines. I mean, I said it immediately after 2020 that it was all corrupt. Every single day, we're seeing more and more evidence come out that everything was a sham and a fix. Even Bill Barr, the Attorney General for Trump, he sought to uh, limit and stop investigations of reported fraud during 2020. That came out just here today.
Right. Well, John Glover says, but few ever give thought to that line of conversation, replacing oneself. Miss Glover, I think you're on to something with that.
I think you're
All right.
right. I think she's absolutely right. But I want to know, how do we have that conversation? I mean,
I don't know.
how do we get people to start thinking about those things and having deeper introspection on it? I mean,
you have to have candidates that are willing to bring that up, and I would argue that most aren't, at least on the local level and even on the state. Well, hell, I mean, even the national level. We've got shows like ours. And we have a little bit of reach into Shreveport, but it's growing. Uh, but I would say very few other shows that would reach the black demographic are going to talk about this because why should they? I mean, we know philosophically why they should, but you know, I don't think it's at the top of their list right now because they are the top demographic in Shreveport. All right. What's next? So we get into blackmail?
Well, why not? Let's do it.
All right.
That segues right into what we were talking about.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch screens. Let me make sure I got it on the right one. All right. So this was a post on Twitter. And this is we'll share this out in the show comments, but this is a transcript of part of a segment between Tucker Carlson, and if you don't follow Tucker Carlson, you really should. Between Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was, I think, a total of about a 30-minute, maybe 35-minute segment. So I would encourage you to go over to Tucker's page or get on YouTube or Twitter or X, whatever, and watch the whole thing. But I want to start playing through. This is a 3-minute and 46-second segment of that because there were some very interesting things said here. So at any point you want to stop, Mr. Lowry, just raise your hand or let me know. All right, here we go.
Has completely changed his character in a matter of about 5 months after he has become Speaker of the House. Mike Johnson is a Christian. He called himself a conservative, always has been. He's a Republican member, but yet here we are after the minibus was passed just almost 2 weeks ago in Washington. And now with the $60 billion going to a war in Ukraine that 70% of Americans do not support it. That's the most recent polling. 70% of Americans and the majority of Republicans do not support funding Ukraine. People want to see a peace deal in Ukraine, not murdering more Ukrainians and more Russians. This needs to end. But no, Mike Johnson has made a complete departure of who he is and what he stands for. And to the point where people are literally asking, is he blackmailed? What is wrong with him? Because he's completely disconnected with what we want.
Do you think he is?
All right, so I'm going to stop right there. So let's dissect that for a second. First of all, by a show of hands out in the comments in the audience, who supports Ukraine or the efforts to back Ukraine by the U.S., and who does not support our U.S.-led efforts to back Ukraine and send $1 billion over there? Let us know in the comments. All right, Mr. Lowry, what say you to this interview or segment so far?
Okay, I got a lot to unroll here. First, let me go to Ukraine, then we'll come back to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Ukraine. So Anthony Blinken came out today, and Anthony Blinken said that Ukraine would be brought into NATO. So for everybody, Russia has already said, and while we say, we'll draw a red line or a line in the sand, and then we don't stand by it, Russia said they have a line in the sand, and that if Ukraine's brought into NATO, that means World War III, all out war. And you know what? I believe them. I don't believe us. I believe them. Okay, if that makes me a communist or whatever,
Well,
then
look,
whatever.
If you go listen to Tucker's interview with Vladimir Putin, granted it was long and a lot of it was, a history lesson according to Putin, but he does mention or alludes to the fact that basically Ukraine joining NATO would be that line in the sand right there. So I have zero doubt. Now, to make it clear, Anthony Blinken, I can't say that with a straight face, is our Secretary of State. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, just want to make sure I was correct because, I know when Republicans are in who's who, but when Democrats are in, yeah. All right.
So, yeah, let me finish my thought here.
Yeah.
So, all those Caddo Democrats that are so fired up about having all this illegal immigration and rah rah rah, I'm just wondering, y'all all ready to go to Ukraine and go to World War III? Because that's what you're fighting for. That
Well,
is what you're fighting for.
we got to let Zelensky, he's come over here, and I think he used to be was it a comedian or an actor or whatever before he was president of Ukraine, however all that works over
Yeah,
there.
he was a
And
stinking actor.
well, he's doing a fine acting job. I mean,
Oh
look,
yeah, no doubt.
he's acted his way into how
But
many $70 billion so far, or whatever the number actually
but
is.
but what happened to it was Trump that was going to get us into the World War. What what
Well,
what what happened to that?
hey, let's make a prediction. Off the cuff, the thought just occurred to me. So let's assume Trump is going to get elected for his second term. Biden's out. What do you think Trump does with Ukraine? Do you think he just cuts it off right then and there with Zelensky?
I think he does that, but I think before he does that, he'll go to Putin and he'll say, "Let's get this squared away. What we got to do,"
Yeah.
and it'll be over just
Uh,
like that, snap of a finger. But the Democrats aren't going to allow that. They're not going to allow it. They're going to drag us into World War III, and they're going to get countless, you know, youth of our country killed, if not all of us. They're going to do it because they got too much to hide. They're too corrupt. They
that is
need
a
they need that.
that is a possibility. All
But
right, go ahead.
Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Yeah.
my first thought on this when Marjorie Taylor Greene got out there and started calling for evacuating the chair,
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, here was my first thought. My first thought was okay, well, this is wag the dog because for her to come out and do it, the Democrats would never get on board with her to do it, which is why she did it. But I've since amended my position, and I think that she's actually sincere about what she's saying. And I think she truly believes too that Mike Johnson is compromised.
Well, you know, I've got some to add to that. Let's continue on through here. I'm going to back it up a few seconds, and I'm going to hit play again. And I've got some thoughts on that compromise deal. Here we go.
What is wrong with him? Because
Right.
he's completely disconnected with what we want.
Do you think he is being blackmailed?
I have no idea. I can't comprehend, Tucker, what radically changes a man. I mean, if we break
Yes.
down the second part of basically an omnibus, let's break that down. So Mike Johnson is pro-life. In the second part of the omnibus, just less than 2 weeks ago, he funded full-term abortion clinics. Full-term abortion clinics. He funded the trans agenda on children. I mean, how does that even happen from a Christian conservative Republican speaker? He did nothing for the southern border, did nothing to secure the border. And this comes on the heels of Laken Riley being brutally murdered. This came on the heels of a video that was running on loop on social media where illegal aliens had rushed our border, ran over Texas National Guard, ran over Border Patrol agents in order to invade our country. These were military-aged men, by the way. He did nothing to secure a border. It's the number one issue in the world. He completely changed who he was, funded the FBI, gave him a brand new building, fully funded the Department of Justice that is persecuting everyone on the right and actually targeting our presidential candidate for election this year, literally trying to put him in jail the rest of his life. We don't know who Mike Johnson.
All right, so I'm going to stop there for a second.
Yeah.
I think she's pretty sincere.
Yeah, she's definitely sincere. But, she said a couple of things. One, she talked about fully funded full-term abortion. Well, as you know, I mean, look, ever since Mike Johnson drug up around Bossier, that was his claim to fame, was
Right.
the abortion thing.
Well,
And
we've discussed that either on Louisiana Watch or Bossier Watch, one of the two. We've discussed some of those issues, surrounding his pro-abortion, anti-abortion claims.
Well, remember the church down in Baton Rouge when they had the heartbeat bill or whatever, and Mike, it was the pastor down there. I'd have to find the video, and I can't
Right.
remember the pastor's name, but they did this little short video about how gut shot they were that Mike Johnson was the one that killed the anti-abortion bill down there, the first one coming through the pipe down there in the Louisiana legislature. And Mike was saying it wasn't the right time. We needed to wait.
Yeah. So, yeah, and go ahead and let all those other babies die in the meantime. So I want to address, though, the blackmail claim. And I'm not going to get into specifics, but Duke, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to. There have been claims and rumor mill whisper campaigns about certain things about Mike for many years. Honestly, I kind of dismiss, I'm not a huge fan by any stretch of Mike Johnson either, but I kind of dismiss some of those claims. But you and I have both heard them from maybe reputable sources, but I don't know. But it's interesting that Marjorie Taylor Greene is mentioning that now, because the reporter that reached out to me, and Duke, I don't know if it was the same reporter reached out to you and what conversation y'all had, but that was one of the first things that reporter wanted me to comment on.
Boy,
I was like, look, I've heard the rumors, I've heard the whisper campaigns. You'll just have to dig a little deeper to try to get to the sources, because I'm not commenting on that.
Yeah, now you're taking me back down memory lane. It hadn't been that long ago, but you're right. I do recall that it was a reporter from a national media that asking the question about the rumors pertaining to Mike Johnson.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the same as I told all of them. I said, I don't believe that. I've heard that, but I don't believe that. Don't know anything about that.
Right.
Yeah,
go to the source.
But
sources.
Apparently this guy from Washington, he sure knew about it, or he wouldn't have been asking about it.
Exactly. He asked the question. It was not, in my conversation, it was not brought up by me, and it was one of the first questions he brought up to me. So I just commented on, the Camp Minden situation and some other things, and Mike's involvement or lack thereof in that, and blah, 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 blah. And I just left it at that. But it's interesting that they're having this discussion, because what I haven't heard now, granted, I haven't paid close attention, but I haven't heard Mike come out publicly and address these concerns and explain why he would push for a bill and a package and a spending package to fund all these things that should be antithetical to him as a Christian, a self-professed Christian.
Now listen, I did hear Clay Higgins. Clay Higgins came out and I think it was even maybe on Moon phone. It may have been Moon, and Moon pressed him. Moon pressed him on it. He said, "Hey," he said, Mike is not, he's pushing and not voting for things and he's not going the way that we all know or expect Mike Johnson to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, Clay Higgins said, look, the bottom line is, he said, we have a razor thin majority in Congress, and that there's quite a few Republicans that are not really Republicans. They're purple. We've heard that terminology before.
Yeah.
And that, if they didn't get this bill, we would lose the speakership. It would automatically be turned over to the Democrats. And he doesn't have no choice. And that he's left with a lot of crap left over from Kevin McCarthy. And the bottom line is that we need to have more true conservative Republicans in there.
Well,
I
that
don't know. I don't know if I buy all that.
yeah, I was going to say that may be all well and good, except we have what we are given, and we are given to a man who is self-proclaimed to be of principle and votes his beliefs. And look, I'm not pushing his Christianity. He has made it, and that's fine. He has made it front and center. And so, at what point do you compromise your core values? I would honestly have much more respect for Mike if he would vote to his values, because most of his proclaimed values do actually line up with mine. I would have much more respect, even if we lost the speakership. I wouldn't care at that point, because he could go down saying, no, I voted my conscience, I voted my value system. I would have, my respect level for Mike would come off the bottom floor and actually jump up a few notches. But I expected him to do exactly what he apparently is doing.
Well, it doesn't surprise me either, but you're right. We expect all of these people to vote and carry themselves and take positions on the issues exactly what they say they believe. And then when they don't, there's a few of us that get all aggravated, but not enough of us, apparently. I mean, I still see tons of people that are like, you know, Mike Johnson hung the moon, and
No matter
they
what you
they
say or show
it
them.
doesn't. That's right. They could care less about any of it,
Yeah,
and I don't get that either.
I don't either, but some people have the rose-colored glasses deal. All right, so let's finish this little segment out, and let's commentate on it some more. I don't even know if commentate is a word.
Is anymore. So there's no, I can't comprehend it.
Well, I have noticed just from living in Washington for so long that a lot of the top decision makers are lying about their personal lives, and there's something really amiss there. Mm-hmm. And I would definitely say Mitch McConnell would be among those.
I want to stop right there. Did you catch what Tucker said?
I heard what he said.
Okay, just saying. Back to the question of the question. All right.
I don't know that I still can believe it. I honestly, I don't know that I can. I think that just he's never been actually who he says he was from the beginning.
I would agree with that.
That is what I believe. I don't believe that he's got blackmail, but I just don't think he was ever who I think he's Zelensky. He's just another Zelensky. He's been an actor since the day that he came here.
He has the gift of the silvery tongue, and he is very good at that, I'll admit. All right, here we go.
Yep.
And there does seem to be a connection between the creepiness of your personal life and the deception around your personal life and your willingness to vote with the other side. I mean, have you noticed this at all?
Absolutely. And I think it's something that the American people are extremely aware of, because none of it makes sense. Yeah. How do you become Speaker of the House? And let's look at that. It's basically like there's Establishment Washington runs like a company. We could call it the firm. Well, Mike Johnson just got promoted to senior partner at the firm because he has been obeying their every single demand. He funded the military. He funded the military-industrial complex and everything that they want done. He funded Biden's open border invasion. He funded the Green New Deal, the climate agenda. He funded full-term abortion clinics, the trans agenda on kids. He funded every single thing that the firm stands for and what they're trying to push on the rest of the world. This is the agenda for the rest of the world, and they're not hiding it one single bit.
All right. So I'm going to stop it there, because that's the end of that segment. You can go watch the whole thing. Like I said, it's about 35 minutes for full context. But
I was watching some of the comments you were scrolling up there, and I think it was Miss Ferris, and she said, if you get rid of Johnson, you get Jeffries. Yeah. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I would not be let down by Jeffries. You know why? Because I know what I would get.
But wait a minute. We
knew what I would get.
We knew what we were getting with Johnson. Although we did congratulate and, hey, it's great that somebody from Louisiana is the chair. But we have been on Mike Johnson's case literally the entire time. It's one of the reasons we started Bossier Watch, which of course spawned Louisiana Watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Christopher Norris says, don't jump on me, Republicans, but Jeffries is a leader. I agree with you, Chris Norris. I do. I mean, and the thing is Jeffries, we would know what you would get. These squishy Republicans that they tell you one thing and then do something else, the Democrats, they always do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, they march lockstep.
They're not squishy. They're not squishy. But these Republicans, they always tell us what we want to hear, then they get up there and they pull the rug out from us.
They do
every time.
They literally do what we accuse the Democrats of doing, but the Democrats don't really do. I agree with you. The Democrats say they're going to do this, and for the most part, they do it. And they all line up and they all march forward doing their thing.
And let me give you one. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's not forget Marjorie Taylor Greene was on Speaker McCarthy's bandwagon. She wasn't standing there with Matt Gaetz and all of them. She stood with McCarthy.
Yeah,
lockstep.
Everybody's got an angle. But I just found that very interesting about the comments out of that particular segment. And so, again, I would encourage everybody, after you get through watching Louisiana Watch, head on over to Tucker's. I did put a link to that segment if you just want to watch that part again in the comments. But go on over to YouTube or to X, Twitter, and find that full segment and watch it. It's kind of interesting.
Well, speaking of Twitter, there was somebody else that made a comment regarding Mike Johnson on Twitter. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, and I thought their commentary was actually pretty good. And I think they summed it up pretty good.
I think so. Let's see what, is it Monique? Let's see what Monique Worthy has to say.
Let me just say that I hate when a Republican gets on TV, Speaker Mike Johnson, and says something like, well, we only have a 1-seat majority and we need 2/3 or whatever he said to get bills passed in the House. So that's why we need to work with Democrats. You don't need to work with Democrats. If you don't have enough of your own to do it, it's not meant to be done. You don't need the Democrats for whatever you want to do. If you don't have enough, government is supposed to be gridlocked. Gridlock that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Gridlock it. If you ain't got the votes, don't worry about it. Just show the people why you need more of your people in the House to have the votes to do what we need to get done. Stop thinking you got to work with Democrats on everything. You do not. If we don't give you a House that has the majority you need, you're not supposed to work. Okay? Don't do no working. Don't do no overtime, no nothing. Don't do no work.
No
give
overtime,
us a reason
Mike.
to give you more, because working with Democrats don't make us want to give you more to work with. Do you understand? God, let me.
He said it much more eloquently than I put it my way. She did a bang-up job in 1:17. But she talked about working. In that full interview with Tucker, Marjorie Taylor Greene brought up another interesting point that Mike has said publicly. Now, I don't have a video queued up for this, so I'm just going by what she said, for what that's worth, that he was only getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. And she was like, when she was doing this and doing that and being a mom and all that, she still managed to get 6, 8 hours of sleep, whatever she needed. That the only thing that interrupted her sleep, or getting adequate rest was if she had something on her mind. And so she asked the question, what's your conscience? What, you got a guilty conscience, Mike? Why are you only getting 3 hours of sleep a night?
Look, he wanted it. He wanted it all. He wants that and more. So if he's only getting 3 hours of sleep, that's my choice. That's him.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. All right, Mr. Lowry, what else are we going to talk about tonight? I mean, the Louisiana watches, we're trying to keep them, not nearly as long-winded as Bossier Watch usually. We usually want to try to have a guest, but we had no guest tonight and last week, but wanted to talk about these topics tonight. What else?
Well, I am kind of wondering. I mean, we have a diverse audience tonight, and I'm just wondering, what does everybody think, about the private school versus the public school thing, and you know that's changing, and it's changing in Baton Rouge. I'm just wondering what everybody's thinking about all that. Or do y'all think that the public school systems are serving, our kids, or do you think that maybe we need to start moving away from the model that we have into a different model?
Hmm. So while everybody's ruminating over that for just a few minutes, let me chime in with my 2 cents, just off the cuff tonight. I think one of the things we need to do is we need to get the federal government out of the school system as much as possible. I mean, because one of the arguments that you always hear from the school board officials, especially the Bossier Parish School Board, but I'm pretty sure it's every school board and school officials, is, oh, well, we've got to be able to get the federal money. I mean, we hear all of our local politicians say that all the time. We got to get the federal money. We got to get the federal money. Everybody is handicapped by the daggum federal tax dollars. And I agree that that is a challenge, but I would also say that it seems to me like we need to take the federal money out of the equation. Now, I have no idea how to do that right now or how we would unstitch that deal, but I see that as a problem.
Chris Norris says, "Can I make a guest suggestion for Louisiana Watch?" By all means, Chris Norris. We would love to know who you are recommending, and we, believe it or not, guys, we do have some pretty amazing guests. In fact, we've got one guest specifically I've been talking with about coming on and talking about this subject. But the thing on this public school thing that worries me is, I think it was in Chicago or New York or somewhere up there that they were basically sending the kids home or something to that effect and converting the school to house illegals. Did,
Wait,
did you
what?
did you see that story?
Now, is this one of those that I got to put my tinfoil hat on, or this
No,
actually is
no.
happening?
There was an article to that effect,
Wow.
and I'm just wondering: are they going to end up converting if everybody moves away from the public school system model, and kind of goes away, or the money follows the kid? Are we going to start seeing the public schools turned into illegal immigrant camps?
Yeah. Well, maybe. Uh, and so let me ask you this. Riddle me this, Batman. The illegal immigrants that are coming into the country, how do their kids, if they're not born here, let's say they're dragging them along through South America and through Mexico and, well, Mexico's part of South America, but anyway, Central America, all that. What do we do with those kids?
Well, once they're born here, they're citizens, and
Well, I know it.
hence the term anchor babies.
No, I know if they're born here, but I'm saying the ones that they've got in tow and are not born here. Is it like a don't ask? I really don't know. Is it a don't ask, don't tell thing with the public
Well,
school?
the government's not tracking all of that and keeping
Oh,
up with
okay.
it all, so they're going to say, "Oh yeah, they were born here," and blah blah blah, and then here we go.
Mm.
I mean, I literally I saw an article today on that subject right there about that. A lot of this is about creating anchor babies to be able to get illegals here and to grow the population. And again, the stats earlier, you saw it. It's all happened under a Democrat led government, and it just it blows my mind that people are not losing their mind over this.
Yeah, it's a big problem. All right. What else?
Well,
We've discussed blackmail, Mike Johnson. truck insurance, vehicle insurance, and anchor babies.
Yeah, there was somebody. There was a comment somebody made. I wanted to go back to somebody's comment. I gotta find it. I gotta find it because
Give me a keyword and I can search.
somebody had a really good one, or it popped up or come across. Um,
Sleep deprivation equals bad decisions. Michael Ferris.
I
Just
don't
saying.
know. It
I
may have
think
been.
it's
It was either John Glover's or Michael Ferris's, but the politics has ruined the public schools. And just
oh
like
yeah.
Miss Glover may not have saw, and maybe even MB Ferris may not have saw that even Bosier's superintendent, on a little video this week, called the acts of the legislature to try to, the money follows the kid, that they called it modern day segregation. That's what the Roland guy over here in Bossier, he called it modern day
Oh
segregation.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
he's equating people, and you see the stat we've got on the screen right here. In the last 5 years, there's more people in Louisiana that are starting to homeschool and private school their kids than at any time before. People are giving up on the public school system. I mean, they're giving up on it, but because the public is giving up on it, the bureaucrats within the public education system, they're going to the failed argument, or I shouldn't say failed because it worked in the sheriff's race, but they're going to the argument of, oh, it's just racism. Modern day, it's racism.
Yeah.
Bull
So
crap.
speaking of that, let's play that video, the Jason Rowland video where where he talks about. I went and brought it over from Bossier Watch. So here we go. Y'all listen to this, folks. This is the Bossier Parish School Board, along with a couple of other parishes with the school administrator. So y'all hold on just a second here.
Economic income students may struggle to find a place, and so it'll be selective admission, and in the purest sense, Mr. Corley and I, Bossier and DeSoto are still under orders. In my opinion, the ESAs are just another form of segregation, and it's a modern form of segregation in how we are dividing education across Northwest Louisiana.
Not to count.
So, do y'all think that regardless of the student, if the money follows the kid, if the kid chooses to homeschool or the kid chooses to go to a private school, and the state says, okay, well, that money will follow that child to wherever they go,
Is that segregation? Is an
how is that
educational savings account segregation?
how is
That's
that
your
racism?
that's your school board superintendent saying that an educational savings account, as put forward in the Baton Rouge legislature, is modern day segregation.
You're giving the parents and the kid an opportunity to get a better education. What if a parent decides they want to give their kid a classical education versus giving them this new kind of crap math that they got or whatever? I mean, good grief.
Well, and Michael Ferris brings up a good point. He says Mr. Rowland is fighting hard for the system he heads. It's literally his job. I agree, but I think he's a true believer. I think he truly believes if that federal and state money does not filter or launder through the Bossier Parish School Board, then, well, it's just a lost cause and it's segregation, which is a bunch of crap. But we won't relitigate the whole 2019 tax increase initiative here in 2024. We won't do it. I will not get on my soapbox, dude.
Let me fix that for you real quick, Mr.
Okay.
Ferris. You talking about the coaches clearinghouse? We'll cover that in Bossier Watch next week. But
Yeah. All right, Mr. Lowry. What else shall we talk about tonight?
I don't know.
We've talked about segregation, blackmailing. What else? Oh, we talked about race, demographics, white folks. Next week we'll
insurance.
probably have our Klan hoods on. I mean, Insurance. What else can we cover in one night?
Well, I already thought we were default clan members because we're white. Didn't I thought that was already the deal.
Yeah, I guess it is. Who knows?
Anyway, but you know what? Here's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is until we all start talking about it, and I even think Miss Glover. I mean, look, Miss Glover. And for those of you that don't know Miss Glover, and I'm going to say it this way, Miss Glover, I hope you don't take no offense. Um, she is a black lady in Shreveport, and she is at every meeting of the city council. She's at every meeting of the Caddo Commission. She is an example of what a person who takes their civic responsibility seriously. She is the model for it.
Yeah,
And
she is very outspoken.
yeah, and there's not enough of it. I mean, the closest one I see in Bossier, I would say she is the Colonel Crockett of Caddo.
That's a pretty good compliment, actually, because Colonel Crockett is very vocal, to say the least, and so is Miss Glover. Absolutely.
Yeah, but this racism thing and all this, we got to
Wait a
talk
minute.
about it. We
You
got to
know-
talk about it.
Do you know who we need to have as a guest on the show?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did Chris ever say who it was he was recommending?
Yes, he did, and I'll scroll back up to it. But we need to have Miss Glover on. Miss
Oh,
John
you better-
Glover. Would
you
you like
better
to be a
believe it.
guest on the show in the upcoming weeks? Well, you can pick any topic you want to talk about. Would you like to be a guest on the show?
She's probably been to more meetings and is probably more knowledgeable than all of those jackwagons that are elected over there.
Yeah, probably so. Let's see. Let me go find Mr. Norris's recommendation. Hold on just a second. All right. So Christopher James Norris says, well, you should try and get the Shreveport Downtown Development Authority board chairman, Michael, whatever his last name is. He was a former Shreveport City Council member. He got beat up by the He got beat up by the city council last week about a search for a new DDA executive director. Might be interesting.
I think that's Michael Corbin, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Well, we need to try to get him on if we can. And Miss Glover says, sure and thank you. We will reach out to you, Miss Glover, via Facebook, and we will set that up and make it happen within the next couple of weeks. We would love to have you on as a guest.
Well, I want to real quick. Good night, Mr. and Mrs. Ferris. Good night, Barry Butler. Good night, John Glover. Good night, Judy Stewart and Cassie Rogers. Good night to you as well, too. And David B. Womack checked in.
He chimed in for a few minutes. Good to have you down there in that Elm Grove area, metropolis of Elm Grove.
Well, anyway, well, that's all for tonight. I think we even talked more than we had planned on it.
I think we did, and we kind of usually do anyway. But we're glad to have everybody. We were running a little bit over 30 people watching here and there, so glad to have everybody. We just kind of decided to go ahead with some of the topics at the last minute, and as usual, Mr. Duke, it was pretty good conversation.
Pretty good conversation, and have a good night, folks. Thank you. See you next week.
We'll be back next week.